everyone, welcome to another Dannphan's advice video. The rain has been pouring for a long time now and it's making my knuckles very achy. I know that I mentioned this before, but that brand new light that I bought broke, so I'm basically just back to using the desk lamp. So I'm nowhere close to actually getting better lighting. And don't even get me started on getting a better camera. It's even further away. I know that a lot of these Dannphan's advice videos have like large time gaps between them. I am sorry about that. I get distracted all the time and sometimes I just don't want to really sit down and do a talking video. Some people say I should try scripting my videos, but then I don't want to seem like disingenuous in any way. I just kind of want to talk to the camera. These are the words coming out of my mouth right now. Today the topic of discussion is realism in stories. Now, some of you who have already watched my videos for a while now already know how I feel about something being more realistic. I don't think that realistic makes a story better, nor does it make art better. And one of the reasons why I don't believe that it makes something better is because when you think about somebody talking in real life, word for word, they don't really sound that interesting. They're not really that expressive or as articulate as they could be. You know, if you look over, I don't know, police footage or stuff on True TV, you hear people stuttering, you hear people not finishing their first sentence and starting a new one, you hear people talking very monotone. None of that is good stuff to put in a story. That's the type of stuff that will put the audience to sleep. I believe it was this famous animator who once said, "I want to make something believable, not realistic." The idea with animation is they over-exaggerate, and that is why caricatures and very cartoonish characters will have very expressive faces. You know, even the animation itself is very expressive. It's very bouncy, very squash and stretch to exaggerate movement itself, and none of it is realistic. But we are still able to see what's going on and understand the captivated emotion behind it. We can see a cartoon character be surprised or be scared in a very cartoonish manner, and even though it's not a realistic depiction of that emotion in real life, we understand that emotion and we connect to it. And in a lot of cases, we actually connect to that over-exaggeration of the emotion more than we would connect to a realistic version of that emotion. So I think that same principle can be applied with storytelling and art in general. Now, I know that there will be a lot of debate whether or not art should have that same principle applied to it all the time. I personally stray away from more realistic art styles, especially in comic books, because I don't really feel that connection with these more realistic art styles like I would with a more exaggerated art style. And a lot of that is definitely personal preference. I won't pretend like I'm not unbiased in this whole situation. I'm a very biased person. So if we apply that same principle to writing and to story, the key ingredient is exaggeration. Exaggerate emotions the characters are feeling. Exaggerate their personalities. Exaggerate the action scenes. You ever see those cop movies where like they shoot a criminal once, they get hit in the chest and they go flying 10 feet in the air? It's super unrealistic, but it definitely exaggerates how powerful the bullet is, and then they lay down unconscious for the rest of the movie. Not realistic at all. In real life, you know, it probably will take multiple bullets to actually get somebody down. We're surprisingly durable as human beings. Not only does this exaggerate like the power behind the action, but I think it also kind of helps story-wise, helps the flow of the story, so that they don't really have to deal with these characters that much. It's like usually for a story, the main character can be shot multiple times and stay in the fight, but they only have to shoot the other guys once and they all go down. Like maybe the villain will have to be shot multiple times until he goes down, but all the other henchmen, you know, they're not in it. They're just not having a good day. They get shot once and they're like, man, I don't feel like getting up. Now, some people might claim that a lot of unrealistic things in a story or used for a cartoon can make something appear more goofy. And yeah, to some extent, it will make something appear more goofy if it's unrealistic. People have like kind of a different opinion on what the word goofy really means, but I will say flat out that I and most of you probably already know this, but I enjoy a good goofy movie every now and then. I've been watching a lot of 80s movies recently because I'm trying to get inspiration for this other story that I'm writing. 80s movies can be pretty goofy at times. The mere plot of these 80s movies can be pretty goofy, but I still love it because it's creative. When a writer is willing to write a goofy story, I think that opens up what kinds of stories they can write. It opens up the creativity, because if you're writing a realistic story, you're limited to what you can write in that story. Breaking the chains of limitations in your writing can help you get better at writing, in my personal opinion. And obviously, there is an audience for fantasy. There is an audience for those silly, goofy movies. I'm obviously part of the audience for goofy movies. I enjoy them. I think that they're silly and ridiculous and very creative. I mean, you take a look at anime, and anime is like full of all these ridiculous ideas for the plots of their anime. It's because people are trying so many different things, and they're also finding all of these audiences that they didn't even know that they had. Audiences that are latching on to this concept because they really liked it, even though some people might think that it was silly. And you can also apply that to American comics, you know. The whole idea of superheroes could be scoffed at as if it's silly. The idea of a Spider-Man, you know, a guy who can shoot webs. Ha, that's so unrealistic. Spider bites don't do that. But sure enough, it's one of the most popular comics and franchises of all of the Marvel. So once you start expanding your writing style to include more goofy and more fantasy concepts into your writing, willing to exaggerate and willing to make stuff up, then you come across the problem of the suspension of disbelief. Oh, suspension of disbelief. I have come across this many a time. And you know, I probably don't have the best advice for this suspension of disbelief. The basic idea is just that people will be on board with your story itself, but they'll come across something that they'll criticize because they don't think that it's realistic, or at least that's how they'll describe it. But when people really describe something that they don't think is realistic, what they mean is they don't think that it's believable. They don't think it's in line with the universe that you've set up in your story. So given that, I think the best advice I can give for the suspension of disbelief that I'm sure a lot of you are going to come across as more people read your stories, the best thing you can do to try to avoid that is to make sure that your story stays consistent with its laws of the universe. If your main character is walking up to a bunch of gunmen and he's just gunning them all down while they shoot at him but not a single bullet hits for no reason whatsoever, that's not very consistent, because here you have him being able to gun them down, but they're not able to gun him down for no reason. That's not consistent. That's not a consistent law. He needs to be doing something that makes it so they're unsuccessful for gunning them down. A lot of people joke about the Star Wars minions not being able to hit anything, but at least the main characters are moving. At least they're trying to duck behind cover to prevent themselves from getting hit. That is more believable. Even if it's unrealistic, it makes that scene, it makes those movies a little bit more believable that they would be able to escape from heavy fire. So just be careful with moments like those during your stories, and I think overall you'll probably be okay. So the advice that I'm giving you today is don't be afraid to be goofy. We like it. So if you have any advice that you'd like to add on to this topic of discussion for today, definitely leave your own thoughts, your own opinions down below in the comments section. Let me know how you personally feel about stories within these types of topics. It is very important for writers to discuss these type of things with each other, and for the actual audience to discuss this type of stuff with the writers. Communication is very important, is my point. Either way, I hope this video will help you out a little bit in the future. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!
Program restart.